Wildfires, an ever-growing threat for our ever-growing population. As the world adds another billion people over the next 15 years, most of them will be living in areas designated as wildland urban interfaces. Meaning, with more people living near our forests, wildfire risks will continue to increase. Last year alone in California, wildfires burnt over 10,000 homes, leaving areas of the state in total destruction, with fear of future catastrophe. We are in dire need of tools to combat wildfires, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and protect natural carbon sequestration resources. Hello, I am your host, Mike Lake, and in today's preview, I will be talking with Andre Zhang and Paul Redhead about Robotics Cats, a wildfire detection solution.
Innovation, resiliency, discovery. Join Mike Lake, President and CEO of Leading Cities, as we explore the technologies shaping the possibilities of our future with a preview of tomorrow.
Hello and welcome, Andre and Paul. Thank you both so much for joining us. And once again, of course, I want to welcome all of you, our listeners and viewers. It's really an exciting moment for me to introduce you to Andre Young and Paul Redhead. Andre is the founder and CEO of Robotics Cats, and Paul is the technical lead. Robotics Cat is a company that is creating wildfire detection tools for governments, businesses, and communities. So before we get into this challenge that the world is facing on increasing numbers of fires, I do want to get both of your personal stories and how is it that you came to create Robotics Cats and focus on this issue at large. So Andre, if we want to start with you.
So first of all, thank you, Mike, for having us. And we are very excited to participate in the City program, as well as today's podcast. So my name is Andre, founder and CEO of Robotics Cats, and my background is in telecom and cloud computing, doing international sales in the Asia-Pacific region. And I'm very lucky to meet a very talented engineering team, including Paul. They have a great solutions to help people to detect wildfire, to reduce the risk, and then they want to grow it internationally. And I believe I can help in that area, and that's why we founded the new company, Robotics Cats, to achieve that mission.
Terrific. And Paul, how did you get interested in wildfires?
My first job out of university in 2006 was forest fire detection systems in South Africa. And I ended up traveling pretty much around the world, helping people with it. But the focus ended up being very centered on control sensors with people behind the systems and very little automation. And I ended up in Hong Kong at some point and got involved with the team here to automate it. So our goal at Robotics Cats has really been in automating the detection side of it rather than relying on humans.
So let's talk a little bit about the wildfires and frankly, the increasing frequency and seemingly greater damage being done by them. I mean, looking historically, just in recent history, you know, we're looking at 2018, remembering the Greece wildfires with over 1,200 buildings burnt. The following year, Australia, the brush fires burnt 46 million acres in 9,000, almost 10,000 buildings. And just last year in California, more than 4.3 million acres and over 10,000 buildings. I mean, these are unbelievable numbers. And if you're not living in any one of these communities affected, it's easy to not realize the impact that this is having. But if you do live in one of these communities, it's very personal and really front of mind at just how dangerous a wildfire can be. So let's talk, what is the cause of these increasing wildfires and why is it happening so much now?
Me first. So with climate change and higher temperature, we have higher wildfire risk. And based on our projection, in the next 15 years, we will have 1 billion more people in the world. Most of them will be living in a new city next to the forest. And with these global trends, we will have more people, they call it live next to or working next to wildland urban interface, or they call WUI, W-U-I. And higher temperature, more people, it will increase wildfire opportunities as well as the risk. Yes, that's what we have today.
But so when you think of wildfires and you think of that as a threat, certainly one of the immediate next thoughts is, what do we do in response? How do we protect ourselves? How do we prepare for it? So before we get into Robotics Cats, just in general, what is the current state of things?
So the current state of things, it's going to start depending which geography you're talking to, and in each country and within countries, counties, regions have their own mitigation strategies. But generally speaking, you're relying on detection or reporting of an incident, and then you're relying on crews to put that out. There's other, I mean, it's a huge industry. So there's a lot of other aspects from managing your land better, doing your clearances. But generally speaking, the detection side of it, which we focus on, is very important, because you have to find your fires quickly in order to prevent them getting out of control.
Understood. So now let's talk a little bit about Robotics Cats. I mean, the good thing about this challenge is I think everybody understands the imminent danger of a fire. So what as I kind of alluded to earlier, is that if you're not prepared for it, if you don't know it's coming, it's even more dangerous.
That's right.
So this is where Robotics Cats really comes into play. Tell us a little bit about how the system works and what it does.
Okay, well, the primary solution that we have is using camera systems and computer CNNs, neural networks. So the modern technologies that have come up in the last couple of years using machine learning or AI to analyze the images coming out of those cameras. And what we found is historical systems were doing a lot of motion-based algorithms. We were trying to be clever, but in fact, we weren't. And the newer techniques with the machine learning have been very, very, very good at identifying smoke sources. And to do that, we train the system in recognizing them. So we've got, easy 500,000 images of smokes and early fires that we use to train our algorithms. And then whenever you go into a new geography, your environment will be slightly different, and we'll gather data in that region, and we'll update our algorithms so that they function correctly. So that system then is linked through mobile phones, through the cloud, or through workstation software, depending on what level of software you have from us, and you can get an early alert when you have a fire.
And that early alert, I mean, it can be the real difference between life and death, can it not?
Yes, yeah, for sure. If you have a red fire day, you're graded. So if you go into an area that has a fire, you go from different color codings. And when you start getting up to your orange and your red days, red in particular, I was always taught within forestry that if you had a fire start on a red day, you had 15 minutes to start putting water on it. Otherwise, it's out of control. So when somebody says that, early detection, if people argue with me that it's not important, I look at them and say, well, I don't know when your clock starts ticking, but if you don't know where it is or when it started, you need to get there really quickly.
And I mean, 15 minutes, as you know, is not a lot of time.
It's not a lot of time.
Every second counts.
Yeah. But I mean, on a red day, I mean, we have to understand that obviously as your fire danger index gets bad, crews and people they're on alert. So people are like they're sleeping in aircraft ready to take off and go, because you understand that the risk is so severe under those circumstances. In fact, a lot of times we saw within the commercial plantation sectors that a lot of your runaway fires started when you don't have everything being severe. You get down to a yellow or orange, conditions are not too bad, and everyone's then, it's not so bad. And that's usually when you'll drop a ball.
And do you have a sense, this might not be a fair question, but do you have a sense of, once you're into that orange, yellow kind of period or phase, what is the response time at that point?
I don't have those figures, and I don't want to misquote them, because it's going to going to be agency dependent, and I really wouldn't want to throw anyone under the bus.
Sure, no, fair enough. So, okay, now in terms of you covered a little bit about the AI and kind of machine learning side of this, but obviously there's that hardware piece as well.
Yes.
So as people are thinking about deploying such a solution, what is that physical hardware need that's required?
It's a great question, since our two backgrounds. Andre has a little smaller camera behind his head, and I've got our more flagship product behind mine. So if you're aiming at community level, communities are not going to have loads of money behind them to throw at this problem. So we try to make a simple solution using off-the-shelf security cameras, and that can link through to our online AI cloud system and do the machine learning through Amazon or Google platforms. When you're going to commercial government sector, there's the camera system behind myself even has a thermal unit in it if you're needing to look at heat signatures. But obviously the price comparison is quite significant. So that's why we spread across the market.
So this can be added to existing hardware?
Yes, or existing towers. Historically, I've put cameras up, radio masts, I've put them up old abandoned lookout towers that have been condemned where humans can't go up them to look for fires anymore. You can put a camera system up them to do it. If you've got your house and you're overlooking a valley or overlooking a mountain and you're worried about a fire starting when you're not home, you'd be able to put a camera on your wall even, or like we've done there at an animal sanctuary in Hong Kong to monitor for fires.
So that's incredible. And once a fire is detected, the proper authorities are automatically notified? Is that how it works?
Again, it's going to depend on the product. So no, the one that's deployed for communities, it's going to send you an alert. We haven't got to the stage that this is integrated into your 911 call centers. That is where if we start talking about the future, that's what I would like to get to, particularly from a community level. But there has to be some sort of monitoring or filtering on that, because we don't want anybody to start alarming on, I don't know, I mean, let's be silly, someone's cut their grass and they're burning their leaves, and then that's going to cause a smoke. You're probably going to get an alert on it. We don't need the fire authorities to respond to it. So there has to be some sort of control over how the alerts are managed.
Sure. But nonetheless, I mean, a huge opportunity to increase the risk, or decrease, I should say, the time to respond,
yes.
But increase the effectiveness of that response in the
Correct.
process.
Correct.
And that's really what this is about. It's about minimizing a threat, and ultimately, that's what we're talking about. And that threat is not insignificant. I mean, just thinking about the number of families, whether it's a business that they owned or their own home, just going through some of those, I mean, in those three examples from Greece, Australia, and California, you're talking about over 20,000 buildings being lost.
Yeah, that's right.
That's disruptive to people's lives. It's disruptive to economies.
Yes.
It has a ripple effect throughout an entire community. So the work you're doing is much more than really just wildfire detection. It's really about community resiliency, and that's a huge value for any community.
I think that was. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Michael.
No.
I think that was our. I mean, it's been my motivation. If anyone looks at me and says, "Paul, why are you still doing wildfire detection for 14 years of your life?" And I say, because it really does matter. I've gone to sleep in a house in Placerville in California in 2014 or 15, and they had a runaway fire in the area, And we were honestly going to bed thinking, do we have to evacuate overnight? That's not a nice way to go to sleep. So for sure, it really does matter. It has an impact.
And even if COVID
I'm surprised you're even able to sleep that night.
I must say, I was lying awake for a while thinking about things.
Andre, you were about to say something. Sorry.
Yes, and because of the pandemic, we stopped traveling. But before it, Paul and I visited a lot of our customers in Mexico, in Indonesia, in Thailand. And as you said, once you are in an area which is burned by wildfire, you can feel it. It is more than the nature, more than the trees. And you really want to help people to reduce the risk and impact.
Yes. Absolutely. So let's, I can't believe our time is almost up, but in this last question, as I always like to ask our guests, looking to the future, what is the impact for an individual, for a community, for the world at large, in terms of Robotics Cats is deployed everywhere and that threat is minimized? What does that mean?
I do a short version first, Paul, you the long version. And again, we in the past, all that's heavy metal for government. People believe it's government work to fight wildfire. From our perspective, it is now a global challenge. Everyone can play a role. Everyone can contribute. And then that's why we want to build a cloud version so that we can leverage your existing surveillance camera and then to help your community. That's what we believe it will help more people. Not just the government work, every people can contribute, can help your neighborhoods. Paul?
Yeah, I agree with those sentiments. It's almost crowdsourcing your fire detection, if I had to look at it that way. And if I had a vision, yeah, I'd like us to be at a point that you don't even need to go and buy necessarily a security camera. Maybe we can get to the point that you buy a little Robotics Cats camera and you chuck it on your wall, and it does it and it sends you an alert, and something that's affordable for everybody so that it is down really at individual levels.
Well, either way, I mean, the reality is the same, that you guys and the work that you're doing is truly making a difference, and it's saving lives. I mean, I don't want to sound hyperbolic here, but the reality is lives will be saved.
Yes.
So for that, I cannot thank you enough. I also want to thank you for joining us today on Preview of Tomorrow. For anybody who does want to learn more or get in contact, what's the best way for them to do so?
Please feel free to visit our website, www.roboticcats.com, and we are also quite active on Twitter, and our Twitter handle is Robotics Cats.
Fabulous. Well, thank you both for joining us, and we look forward to your continued success.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for having us.
Our pleasure.
Cheers.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode of Preview of Tomorrow. Listeners like you are essential to advancing our efforts to drive resiliency and sustainability for all. I ask that you give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or whichever streaming platform you prefer. Your feedback helps us to grow and share these brief previews of what life in the future can be. In addition to thanking our guest today, I want to thank Peter Roy and Demetria Bridges for making this podcast possible. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and encourage others to also join us each week in previewing the possibilities of tomorrow.
Preview of Tomorrow is brought to you by Leading Cities, a global nonprofit driving resilience and sustainability for all by unleashing the potential of the world's cities. Join them at leadingcities.org.